Welcome back. Hey, everybody. Episode 11. It feels like such an accomplishment to be here today with you, Matthew.
We're double digits, going strong. And I'm pretty sure last episode we promised we're going to do these more often.
Yeah.
And then this has been like 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's not. It's not more often. And in fact, it's probably not going to be more often for a smidge.
Yeah.
But we're working on a schedule for that. But summer,
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Because I think part of my brain was like, oh, summer, I won't have as much stuff going on, you know, consistently. And then I was like, oh, but then I also have a lot of inconsistent things.
Yeah.
All summer long.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. I was like, yes, summer. And then I was like, wait, all my kids will be home all day. So I've actually got my daughters, which is my oldest kid and my youngest kid are my daughters. My son's in the middle. Uh-huh. And he's like, so I had to bring them with me. And then the son's at home with my husband. And it's just like funny.
Right. And my kids are here. And then 2 other kids are, so it's a circus today.
If you hear children, it's cool.
It's cool. It's fine.
They're fine.
We understand.
We're fine.
Yeah, we're good. So we're actually starting, since it is summertime, in the church. The church does a lot of summertime activities. I feel like no matter what church you go to, there's always the summer stuff that you got
summer
going
is
on.
Key
It's
for
camp
church.
time. It's Bible school time. It's all sorts of stuff time.
Yeah, and they've got and there's always doing some kind of like swim party or something.
Yeah.
And we are we were talking we talk. I am on stage because I sing at my church, and they have the announcements rolling, and it was just like, this is probably not really how it was, but you know how it looks like this sometimes. But it looked like it went May 22nd, May 25th, May 26th, May 27th.
Right.
Like, it looked like it was counting literally every day, and then it was like, and then all the way into July, because 4th of July is 4th of July, but we're going to Falls Creek the week that ends on the 5th, the very last week of June. And so it was literally into, because the day that we're recording this, the next day is actually they're already doing it right now. That's something we can talk about later, but right now is the week of Associational Children's Camp, or what I call Junior Falls Creek. Mm-hmm. So they've already started. Right. All churches have already started their summer activities now. Right,
and school just ended.
And school just ended last week.
Just ended. Like, in my brain, I feel like when I was younger, in my brain, I feel like it seemed like there was more of a gap between like school ended and then summer events start. Yeah. But now it feels like school ends
the next
day. Literally the next day there's something going on.
Well, and I think that's to do with the fact that a lot of schools do go a little longer.
Right.
Now, because they're like Stonewall, we don't do Fridays.
Right.
So we go I think an extra week than everybody.
Yeah.
And then there's some schools that start sooner. Yeah. Like, we'll start sooner than everybody as well. So we go later and start sooner.
Right.
But when we were younger, I swear, we didn't even start school till the 12th.
Yeah.
And then we would get out on May 12th.
Yeah.
19th or something.
Right.
It was about that week.
Yeah.
Give or take. And I agree with you. I felt like we had a time to relax, and my mom would have time to see what we needed.
Right.
And while a lot of the times what we would do is because my birthday's in April, sometimes for my birthday, she would buy me clothes to wear to Falls Creek.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had enough time to wear some of them to school, see if they were going to work, and then if they didn't, buy more for Falls Creek, right? Or whatever it was, right? Go raid some closet somewhere. And I'm with you. I'm like, it's literally the next day. So we actually did get out of school on the 21st. Mm-hmm. What was Sunday was the 23rd?
I think so.
Is that right?
I think so.
So Sunday or Monday was the very first people to be at Junior Falls Creek or
the 25th.
Camp.
The 25th.
The 25th
was Sunday.
Right. So that's 4 days.
4 days.
No, our group is going. We'll be going on the 28th, I believe. Yeah, the 28th.
Yeah.
So that's not. But still, we literally just got
less than a week. At a week.
Yeah.
Anyway, it could just be this, but I don't know. It just feels like in my brain
it was
longer. Maybe it wasn't, but it just seems like it was.
I do think it is. I think it's just time kind of slows down right at the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
And then it speeds right up once you start getting into it. So maybe it was a weird transitional time in our heads. Like, we don't have to go to school. What a day is it? Kind of like on Christmas break where you're like, what day is it?
Yeah.
Every day after Christmas is like, I don't know what's happening.
Well, Christmas break's even weirder because it gets dark at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, it's so late right now. And then you check the time and, it's only 7:30. Like,
and you're like, wait a minute.
Like, wait. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first event that most people have will be associational children's camp or whatever kind of kids camp that they go to. Right. So there are a few churches in town I know that they go somewhere else than Falls Creek campus. Right. But they go at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I know like Lacey and AJ were talking about Sovereign Grace goes like, it's either the last week of May or the first week of June is their church camp, but it's just not at Falls Creek. Right. So it's like pretty much everyone's going at that time.
Yeah. Well, and then another thing is I think I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but like one reason that it maybe even seems like it starts so early is because I feel like Leandra's got some cousins and stuff that they do baseball. Mm-hmm. And like even that, like, because I had friends that did summer baseball and stuff too, and summer things like that. But even that, I feel like it felt like, oh, there's a break between school ball and summer ball. Now there's like kind of like this. You get a week, and then it's like, oh, I've got some tournaments, and we've got to go do this thing.
I think they've switched a lot of that around too, because there's these rules, especially with like school work. Where you have to have like the dead weeks, right? You know, right. And I kind of wonder if they were like, well, that loses a week in the summer, right? That we can have all this stuff going, so we'll make it go sooner, right? So I think I think that's why a lot of churches go ahead and do their camp early that first week is because June, July into August, you're running into it.
You've got all these sports camps and tournaments and stuff like that you're not necessarily competing with. But like, if you want the most kids to come to your camp,
it's going to be harder the further you go in.
Earlier in the summer. So
we're doing VBS sooner too. They're looking at doing VBS like the third week of June or something instead of like in July at church. And I was like, that would be the quickest VBS I have ever been to. But it is. I mean, because you run into all the sports stuff, and it's crazy. And like our churches aren't that big. No. And so your helpers are gone a lot of the times if you don't do it like right away.
Right, because they've got grandkids or kids that are in baseball or in whatever. So obviously they're going to go with them to that. Yeah. And then, later in the summer, a lot of times vacations start happening. Yeah. People go on vacation and things like that. And so it does make sense why it is this first week. It's just in my head, it just seems like, oh, it's literally right now. Like, literally, kids in our church were like, had graduations a week ago or a week and a half ago, and now it's like, oh, hope you're ready to go to camp because it's right now. Yeah,
so this year I'm actually doing something I haven't done in a very long time, but I'm going to two different camps back to back. Mm-hmm. So I'm leaving Wednesday the 28th for Associational Children's Camp at the Falls Creek campus, and it's supposed to go. I'll be there till Saturday around like noon. But on Saturday around noon, I'm supposed to be at OBU for Super Summer. So I'm actually going to have to wake up Saturday morning and drive from Davis over to Shawnee and sign in. Yay. And I'm like, but when we were younger, Union Valley does Junior Falls Creek is what I call associational camp, and Senior Falls Creek at the same time, back to back. And so I was joking around when they asked if I was for sure I could do this. I was like, oh, yeah, sure. I used to do this literally every summer of my life. But then I started adding it up, and that was like 20 years ago.
Right. Well, I remember there was one summer in particular where we did Junior Falls Creek and then Senior Falls Creek. And then I think maybe that was when I had my off week. But then it was Super Summer. And the week after that, we went to Colorado Springs.
So that was flipped. What we did was we went to Colorado then Super Summer. Yeah.
And then it was like we did. I think maybe then I had like basketball camp or something.
Yeah.
And the week after that was Bible school. And then the week after that was like something. It was like that was the summer of like my washer and dryer was like
crazy,
constantly.
Yeah, so that
running.
was way back. So my oldest daughter is like, I think she turns 14 this year. That's when she was like 18 months old.
Oh my gosh.
Or not 18, like 8 months old.
Yeah.
Like she was like a baby.
Yeah.
And we did Junior Falls Creek, Senior Falls Creek, the mission trip to Colorado, and then y'all did Super Summer. And that took us into the second week. That would have taken us into the second week of June, third week of June.
I think Super Summer would have been that third week of June.
Yeah, and we always do Vacation Bible School the first full week of July.
Right.
Yeah, so you may have had that small little bit, but I mean the second week of it kind of depends on how it falls, but it's basically the first week.
Yeah.
Of July. But anyway, it usually ends up around like the 10th or the 11th of July. So yeah, you probably had like 4 days.
Because I also helped at my
regroup.
grandparents' Bible school too.
Yeah.
And so it was like...
That was fun though.
I
tell people about that summer all the time. She's not going to get to do it now because she's going to an arts camp. Mm-hmm. So she's still going to, and that might be the same week we're doing VBS anyway. But we were joking around with my oldest daughter. I was like, every teenager deserves a summer of Jesus.
Yeah.
And I was like, where you go to literally all the camps.
It was like
all
everything.
The VBSs.
It was like so much all of the it's
fun. It was a lot of work though.
It was a lot of work.
Because we drove everywhere too. So it was like a lot. It was fun.
Driving to Colorado through the panhandle of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
is maybe the boringest drive.
Yes. There's nothing up there.
Absolutely
nothing.
Sorry for our panhandle listeners, but
yeah, like
you guys should move.
Yeah. It really is no man's land. So I've heard this thing before, and Lord knows if it's true because you never know with the internets. But I heard this thing why Oklahoma has such a weird panhandle is because it was because of this weird like no man's land that people were afraid to go in, and it just kind of got like I don't really know how.
It wasn't Texas and it wasn't Kansas and it was
just this random land.
Yeah,
and somehow through the Indian Territory situation, I don't really know, but somehow it became Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And when you drive through there, you're like, that tracks.
100%. 100%.
You're like, oh my gosh, because there's literally nothing here.
You drive and you're like, you're happy when there's a tree.
Yeah.
Like you're like,
there's nothing.
A tree? Like there's nothing around there. Anyway, that's your history lesson for today on the What We Have Learned podcast.
Yeah, I tell you what, we could go on and on and on. I made my daughter write down bullet points so I won't just sit here and ramble with you because I knew Falls Creek, we could probably do a whole week's worth of episodes. Yeah.
So let's talk about Falls Creek. It's been a thing since 1917. It's a long time ago.
Yes, I believe they started out doing like tents, and then they were allowed to like build little cabins, and now if you. They have it's almost like they have an HOA because if you do certain upgrades, you have to make it look a certain way.
Exactly.
And I'll say Falls Creek as an idea, and I do like going, so please don't take this as like a jab, but Falls Creek as an idea makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always function properly, I don't think, and I think they've had their ups and downs with the way like it just works as an organization probably, but I 100% get why it's been over 100 years.
Yeah,
because when I was younger, and they did this whole campaign. Okay, well, 2017 they did this whole campaign because it would have been 100 years.
Right.
But and they put up all these pictures, and some of them are still up in the night. Is it called 1917 Cafe? Yeah, because they changed one of the rooms into like a concession stand, and then some of the pictures are up, and you can just see just like how completely different it was. Like they're selling like literal blocks of ice,
right?
And they're selling like ice creams out of like what looks like pallets nailed together.
Yeah.
I was like, this thing has stand through wartime, depression time, and it's still there serving people.
Yeah.
And that just blows my mind.
It's really cool because, like, you know, like you said, like, you know, so much is like if you just like read your history textbook and say, well, let's start in the year 1917 and go to Danae. Like that's not the boring part of the history textbook. Like there's a lot of things that happen in between that time.
It's a lot.
And so it's like, you would think, oh, if there was this thing that existed at that time, it probably didn't do well, but here we are. It's over 100 years doing really well.
Yeah, and what's really crazy when you talk to people who've been before and they say the same thing. So we are going in a different way than they would be going, but we experience the same thing.
Right.
And I think that's why it works. And that's why, like, as an idea, it's perfect. It makes perfect sense why it's still around.
Right.
I mean, there are some changes to things that, people get a little cranky about. But I think overall, that's why it works. Because the whole goal when you go there is to worship.
Right.
And to be, like, they make you have a quiet time. So, like, to be in your Bible and to worship and to be around like-minded people.
Yeah. And
they really do, I mean, like I said, as an organization and stuff, there might be stuff that maybe people don't fully like agree with or like the way it's being done. But like as a camp, overall, all they want is to make sure people see Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's still around.
Right. And you say the same thing about just church in general, about the whole, there are things have changed and the way people do things have changed in church.
Yeah.
And the way we have church has changed. But, like, the idea is still the same. Like, we're there to worship God. Even though, like, in 1917, there was no lights and projectors and screens and foldy chairs.
And smoke machines.
And Todd Sanders. And there was none of that. But, it's still the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that's what... So I had my daughter make a list for me. I was, like, yelling out crap, and she was typing it on my phone. So, like... So back then, I really do think it was called Junior Falls Creek in a sense. I think it switched to Associational Children's Camp because like different people took it over.
Right.
And that could just be me making that up, but I swear that's in like my core memories.
Yeah.
But so like old Junior Falls Creek was a little more like funny songs with movements and stuff. They still kind of do that now.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It was a little more bass.
Yeah.
And they had a stricter dress code. Like I was telling someone the other day, it wasn't until I was probably like in high school that you could wear pants or shorts to Tabernacle.
Yeah.
You remember? Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember when that turned. And so I joke around about that a lot. And so all my Junior Falls Creek years, we were not allowed to wear pants to the Tabernacle. That switched, I think, in Senior Falls Creek age.
Right.
Which, so Associational Children's Camp / Junior Falls Creek is, they used to kind of go a little more by ages, but they try to make it go by grades now, I believe.
Yeah.
And so it's basically from age like 8, which would be like 3rd grade, to if you're finishing the 6th grade, which is usually around 11 or 12, I believe.
Yeah.
And so that's like the age group of the people there. So of course, if you're having someone who's 7 or 8 years old up to an 11-year-old, you can't go real hard.
Right.
And so the pastors were a little like a little more fun. And like we had Bubba there who did like the balloons.
Oh, Bubba.
And they've got a guy named Steven that does it, I think now. I think his name's Steve or Steven. And Corey Keene's done, Colby.
Yeah, Colby Keene.
Colby Keene's done it. But that's what they do. They do like cool magic tricks and like balloons and stuff. And there's like all these silly songs. And I was telling Alice on the way up here, I was like, what's funny is we still sing those.
Yeah.
So last year we'd pulled up to the cabin and we were like getting ready, and a guy named JP, he's our DOM now in our association. He pulls up and we're talking about songs and stuff, and he starts singing one of them, and him and Reno, which are about the same age, knew it. Me, I'm a couple of years younger, I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, but what about this one? And I started singing one, and JP knew it, but like Reno didn't. And it was like really funny because there was like all these silly little songs, and they do bring some of them back. Yeah. But for the most part, they've switched it more to more worshipy kind of songs that just happen to have movements.
Right.
And I was telling Alice, I was like, I don't know how I feel about it because like when I was younger, I got really annoyed with hand movements all the time. But then I really love VBS songs that are nothing but hand movements. And so I was like, I don't know. I think they must have been onto something.
Well, it's
because we still sing them.
We still sing it because the old Ken Austin and the 150 band.
Yeah, yeah.
They would sing these songs or whatever, and it was kind of what this thing was it was like, okay, it's not Vacation Bible School, but it's also not Senior Falls Creek.
Yeah, there's not a choir usually and all this.
Right, and so like, so now it's like, it's this happy medium of like, okay, well, we've got, 11-year-olds or whatever, 10, 11-year-olds. Well, in Bible school, you've got 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
And so obviously you're going to have silly hand motion songs or whatever. And so, but I remember when the year that at least this Ken Austin band quit being there.
Yeah.
Was your mom had said, hey, guess they weren't there this year. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And then they weren't there again, and they weren't there again, and they weren't there again. And we went down for a night one time, and, I was just expecting the silly, fun, songs or whatever that had motions to it or whatever. And, they're singing Waymaker and Good Father and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that there's anything wrong with that, but just in my brain, when I think of Children's Falls Creek, I think of Bubba getting in the giant balloon and trying to fit in there or whatever. And then... them
the
singing,
Making Melodies.
That song. And so it was just like, that's one of the things, probably the biggest change.
And they've got, like, people talk about just the overall look of Falls Creek, and especially some of the older people. The overall look of Falls Creek has changed. Like, the tabernacle used to be outside, and there used to be a pool, like an actual pool, and now we swim in, like, ponds.
Yeah.
Like, but which is funny when you think about it. Kind of like they probably built the pool to get out of the pond and then had to go back to the ponds.
Right, yeah.
But that's in the old, like when I was going in now as a sponsor, when I'm going, they still do water games. Mm-hmm. There's these things like this that stay the same, but it's like they're just like leveling it up just a smidge.
Right.
Just like bringing it higher, elevating it just a smidge.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because at first it used to really annoy me. Like growing up, I had this like love-hate relationship with the whole thing because I had this really bad insecurity where I always feel people think I'm stupid.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that Junior Falls Creek to Senior Falls Creek, I noticed that they were it felt like they were dumbing down stuff. Mm-hmm. And so then you get into Senior Falls Creek and you're like, oh, this is not the same.
Yeah.
And so that's why when they started doing like more like at nighttime, they were doing way more like actual worshipy kind of songs.
Right.
I was without any movements or nothing. I did kind of appreciate that switch a little, but I did kind of like, but then you kind of miss the silly songs. You're kind of like, I get it now because it's heavy.
Right.
And that's a lot to put on like an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old. Yeah. And some of them are saved, but some of them aren't.
Right.
And you just kind of don't know where that line is.
Sure.
But I kind of feel they've done that with Senior Falls Creek too, because like even with Senior Falls Creek when I was younger, they did all these like weird skits and stuff sometimes that were just like, what is happening?
Right.
And now they're a little more like everything's very catered, and they have like these like set pieces and like all this, and so I don't know. I don't know. Progress is always good, I think.
Yeah.
If it's for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I actually never thought I would say this, but I do kind of miss the outside tabernacle sometimes.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I miss the classrooms. So, they host breakouts still.
Sure. Right.
But I don't know if you ever got to go to these, but they used to have all these pavilions everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it would just say like pavilions on the schedule. And that was the breakouts.
Right.
But it was usually based on like age and like gender and stuff.
Yeah.
But I was, me and you were kind of like this. All our friends are the year older than us. Yeah, so like all our friends are like a year older than us, so we kind of got to do stuff early.
Right.
And so the pavilions, I would just go hang out with the older kids. So it'd be like high school boys, and I would be like, or like high school or whatever. Sometimes it wasn't boys, but I would be like, okay.
Right.
And I'd go hang out, and I loved those so much because you were walking all over campus, and there was somebody sitting there, and you had these little notebooks and stuff, and you like filled out. Sometimes they were kind of boring and over my head because I tend to follow the people ahead of me.
Right.
But I miss it so much because what it was, you went to morning service and there was like, it was fun, but you just kept moving. And I will be the first to admit, the older I get, the more likely I am going to fall asleep inside the tabernacle because I get cold and I get still. And sometimes I'm like cuddling to keep warm. And so my body's like, oh, sleep time.
Right. Well, morning service
so hard.
is so hard.
It's so hard.
Because you obviously didn't sleep well.
No.
The night before. And then you mix that with, breakfast is at 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you didn't sleep well, and then you also have to be up before 8 o'clock, especially like for us or whatever, like if we're helping cook the food.
Yeah.
Then it's like 6:37, depending on what you're cooking. And so then you're up that early, and then the morning tabernacle comes, and you sing the songs or whatever, and then they're like, all right, now let's sit down.
And we're
going to just listen
still.
to the... There was one
Feel
year
the word.
that... It was the year that it was the 100-year anniversary or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had that, like, doctor or whatever his name was.
Oh, right.
like
I remember that.
The leader of the thing or whatever. And they had him come out. It was like a Thursday or Friday or whatever. And he was the most, like... stoic, soft-spoken person,
super important person,
like, great guy,
super
probably. But they picked him to be because it was the 100 year, and they wanted him to be the official speaker or whatever.
And he's just speaking like he's speaking to a bunch of like adults,
right? Like he's
older
at a business
adults.
meeting, right? Like at Oklahoma Baptist headquarters, giving us those business meeting.
That was hard.
Like, I remember we're sitting there and like it was hard.
Yeah.
To not just be like. I'm gonna start snoring right now.
Yeah,
I'm so flipping tired.
That was one of the last years we went, and so I didn't even get the full experience. I just happened to be there because that was one of the last years I went. We had just about that time is when we quit doing quit doing the youth because we were having now we know he has ADHD, but at the time we did not know our son had ADHD, and it was quite the challenge to get him in and out of a tabernacle without too much of a fuss. Right. But that was around that year. And so we were already just like on edge because we're handling this toddler that just he doesn't feel comfortable in his skin. You can't bring enough toys. You can't bring enough crayons. And yeah, they're like, hello, that's what it sounded like in your head was
like
the
wah, 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 wah,
wah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I do feel like that's a thing of like whether it's Junior Falls Creek or Senior Falls Creek is like, especially I mean, obviously when you're younger or whatever, you could just like find energy somewhere to be like, I'll stay awake.
I'll do
whatever.
it.
I'll
sure.
Whatever. But I don't know. It's just like, it's just crazy.
And these people who've been going our whole lives, like my mom has literally been going my whole life.
Yeah.
And she just does it. And I'm like, how though?
Yeah.
And I know like sometimes now she will go home to bed because we live close enough.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, she slept in a bunk bed for, I'm so sorry. My hiccups are back. I'm so sorry, y'all. She slept in a bunk bed for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like rickety old bunk bed. And I'm just like, it blows your mind. Yeah. And this is something I've told people recently when I was realizing I was going to have to go back to back. Because at first when I said yes, I didn't realize it until I went back and checked. Wait, I'm needed for this other thing too.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, please. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. I was like, oh no, that's back to back. I went, oh my gosh. I'm not going to be sleeping in my own bed with my own mattress and I don't sleep well by myself.
Right.
Like I always joke around. My husband's always like getting mad at me because I'm putting my cold feet on his feet. Yeah. And he's like, stop it. And I'm like, I have to know you're there, man. Like, so, like it's so funny. And I'm like, I have to do that for a week and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and what's great about it is I tell this to people all the time. I was like, somehow I manage. By the end of the week, will I be walking with a limp? Oh, most likely. Because especially this year, I have had, and the last year I went to, I realized this was going on too then probably. But ever since I had my last kid, which will be 5 years in December, my hips and my lower back have been messed up.
Yeah.
and I cannot keep them right. So I've tried walking more. I've tried like standing workouts more, and it will help me, but like really honestly not enough.
Yeah.
And sleeping on those beds just aren't right.
Right.
That will, by the end of Super Summer, I'll probably be limping. There's a lot of stairs at Super Summer. But I told them that somehow, and I know you've probably felt this too, you make it.
Yeah.
You don't really realize it till you get home. I've been going on like 4 hours of sleep for like 5 whole days.
Right.
And it's wild. And I tell people that's something I think that just proves even more that it is for the Lord. Because when you're serving, you will push yourself farther than you ever would go if it was just for yourself.
Right.
And because you're like, no, I got to do this for them. I got to do this for the Lord. And your brain just pushes.
Yeah.
And I think it's because God, honestly, it's because God gives you the strength.
Well,
He's like, I've called you to it. I will bring you through it.
Right. And I feel like, there's a lot of other things that we'll probably have to do in another episode that we could talk about, because you said earlier we could talk about this for forever.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's the biggest thing is like, whether you're a leader or, a sponsor or anything or whatever. Like Leandra and I, my wife and I, we were joking about like, because we've got a 11-month-old at home, and she just does not like sleeping at all.
Yeah.
And so we were just joking like, oh, hey, when we go to Falls Creek, we'll actually get some decent sleep or whatever. And so, but like, that's literally what it is, because like you don't sleep at all.
No.
You're getting fed.
But it's not the best.
It's not the best.
I mean, your cooks could be great cooks,
right.
but you're cooking foods that are meant to be ate by 100 people.
Right.
So it's usually like chicken nuggets and stuff.
Right. This is not some 5-star gourmet, something like that.
No dyes. There probably are dyes.
Right. Yeah, probably. Sorry, all the people. But like, so you've got that, and then it's also 497 degrees outside.
So bad.
And then, so you're doing that, and see, that's
and there's asphalt everywhere.
And there's asphalt every freaking where you go.
Yeah.
And then back, because going back to like the old cabin, there was just those massive fans.
Yeah.
And so you sit outside this amphitheater thing, which now is like the skate park or whatever.
So it went from the regular outdoor tabernacle, which sat where the tabernacle sits now, the new one. But in between that, when they were building the new one, they built this amphitheater, and it literally just had fans, huge fans.
Right.
And they switched it into a skate park when it was done. It's been through 3, and that's why I joke around. I was like, but have you been to all 3?
Yeah.
Like I joke around with people, but it is. They were just trying to pile thousands of people weeks at a time
right.
into these places.
Yeah. And so
in our cabin, it doesn't have central heat. So the one that I'm going to stay in has central heat and air, which is like heavenly. I'm going to rub that in for just a second, Matthew. I get to stay in a cabin. And the week that they do Senior Falls Creek, the one they're going to stay in has central heat and air in that one too. I'm going to say it is actually weird to get cold in your sleep. I will say that. But our cabin that we grew up in and y'all are still going with, we have units. We have window units.
Window units, yeah.
That has to keep up with. One year, I swear, it's got 110. I swear.
100%.
And those people who go in July that go that late, I'm just like, how?
Well, see, then so we go the first week of June and have been for forever.
Forever.
And so you get there and it's like, could be the hottest day of the whole year, but then also it's still like it's the end of like tornado season.
Yeah, so it
and
is.
so the humidity
cut
is
it with
like,
a knife thick.
Hey, I'm here. And so you got
crazy.
The humidity at like 3,000%.
Yeah,
it's 100 degrees outside, and like sometimes it rains. Sometimes because okay, you would think, oh, it rained at night.
It would feel great.
It'll be nice and cool when we wake
up. No, ma'am.
No.
Yeah, and what's really great, and I say this I joke around about this. So since I'm going back-to-back camps, I literally packed 2 different versions of a bag. So I've got this little suitcase that's going to come with me in my car that I have decided I'm only wearing these clothes at Super Summer. Mm-hmm. I cannot get them sweaty and messed up.
Right.
And then I have other clothes that I could wear at Falls Creek and maybe Super Summer.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I did that, people were like, that's too much. I was like, is it though? Because it has rained at Junior Falls Creek my entire life.
Yeah.
So much so, water comes up to my knees.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I sweat every outfit out that I put on. I will change 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, every year since I was like 10,
Right.
I remember doing this.
Right.
And it was so funny. They're like, you know what? That's true. Like, because it is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's crazy.
and it's great. But they've got not only, but it's not even just the differences like inside tabernacle, outside tabernacle, and like water play is different, like with the pool and not the pool. But now, you know, I don't know how long Super Summer's been going, but your dad went as a student.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's been going, you know, longer than we've been alive.
Right. Right.
And they have it. That's, you know, I bet if we asked them, they would say the changes are crazy too.
Right.
But it all comes back to it's still going and it's still serving the Lord.
Right.
And something that I like to bring notebooks, and so everywhere I go, I usually buy notebooks for the people coming and encourage notes.
Mm-hmm.
But at Super Summer, they actually hand you out notebooks. And remember, Falls Creek started doing the pamphlets.
Right.
And I realized all these new things that at first just seem so stupid because you're just like, why? If it's ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. Right.
I nowadays would not be able to do the outside tabernacle. I mean, yes, I get kind of cold, and it kind of does make me. I'm weird. Like I get itchy when I'm cold, but I mean, like I was about passing out hot when I was younger.
Yeah.
And, you know, now we don't really have choir at Senior Falls Creek. And I cried a little, honestly, the first time I realized they weren't going to do that because I had finally got up the courage. I was going to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't offer it anymore. And just things like that. There's things that I made Alice write Bill Green on here. Because Bill Green was like the music leader whole time growing up. And we sang songs like The Saved. So it's like and they had a full orchestra. Yeah. And I had my cousin audition and got into orchestra one year.
Yeah.
And like my friend from college, her dad took over for Bill Green right in that small time where he couldn't do it.
Right.
But before that, he was on orchestra and trumpet. And like he would be like lead trumpet or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like conductor or whatever. And so my friend like grew up practicing with that. And so it went from full orchestra and a choir being like saved
right.
to like the chain breaker song,
right.
which is cool. It's a cool song. But like
right.
last year I was sitting in Junior Falls Creek. It'd been the first time I'd gone in probably 15 years. Mm-hmm. And they played this video where it was like Jesus dies on a cross and then like the tomb, you know, and it pulls up the tomb and like, right. And it's got all these words like, you know, whatever it said, bruised for our transgressions or whatever,
right.
pierced for our sins, whatever. And then, but then it shows the empty tomb. And then right as it starts to show the empty tomb, you know, clapping, roaring, like kids are freaking out. Yeah. And then it opens and the tomb's empty. And they were singing songs like nothing, like they were saying like, thank you, Jesus, for the blood and like things like this. And they were screaming at this tomb being empty. Right. He is risen. He's alive. Yeah. And everyone's freaking out. And I was like crying. Yeah. I was like, because these kids feel they just saw like the gospel basically. Right. And they're like screaming and in joyous excitement. And like some of, you know, and they're like, I like cried. Yeah. I was like, they get it. Yeah. I was like, they absolutely get it. And I was just like, thank God for Falls Creek. Right. Because we go in and out of parts of our testimony, but I played at church my whole life. Like I went down when I was like 6, but I tell people I don't even remember praying anything. I just remember my dad crying and then trying to get me to be baptized. Right. And then I didn't get saved until I was 17. Yeah. And so I went to Falls Creek every year. That whole time, people thinking I was saved already. Right. No one, and this is not dogging on them. I'm just saying because I could raise my hands and sing, I could do all the movements and I could keep up. Right. Oh, you must be blessed with the Holy Spirit or something. Yeah. And to see like these kids ask the questions and like watching them go down to be saved and seeing it click in their eyes, I lose it.
Yeah.
Now as an adult that has children of my own, I absolutely lose it. And I'm like, you know what? It's worth all the drama. It's worth the rumors. It's worth the background checks. It's worth it to see a kid go bat nuts crazy because Jesus isn't in the tomb anymore.
Right. And that's the biggest thing, I think, is that like, you know, we you know, because you think, especially when Junior Falls Creek started doing more of the worship sense rather than the goofy silly songs or whatever, which they didn't only do goofy silly songs.
No, they did play
songs or whatever, but
Lord
like,
prepare me to be a sanctuary,
right.
holiness, those kind of songs.
They would do that, but it was like that'd be like the last two songs they did, and then the first three would
would be a little more at night sometimes, but still
right.
It was,
but like I think it's cool that they did that, because I think we kind of get in our brain, even if we don't even necessarily do it on purpose, we kind of picture, okay, Junior Falls Creek and Bible school are one and the same.
Yeah.
As far as like
who we're reaching.
Yeah. And the fact that, you know, these kids are 10, 11, 12 years old, maybe 13 years old.
Some of these kids have been in church that long.
Some of them have been in their church that long.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that, and especially if you're like at a smaller church, like this could be some of these kids' first like group worship experiences, kind of more than just like the 20 people that are at church on a Sunday with the organ playing, you know, I Surrender All or whatever. And so like to see that
and see it click
like, see it click in people's lives.
Yeah.
I think it just proves the point that like kids know, like it's not just okay, well we'll play games at Bible school. We'll play games at junior, and then when they get to Senior Falls Creek,
then all of a sudden
they'll figure it out. They can figure it out.
They can figure it out sooner
than that.
And they actually do talk about stuff sooner. So that's one thing that really surprised me is they were bringing up some serious stuff. Last year, and I was like, I wasn't mad. So last year, one of the lady sponsors had to leave early. Something happened when her boss and her like got their wires crossed. So she had to leave the last like 3 days of Senior Falls Creek. And they just kind of needed the extra girl in the room. You know, it's a numbers game.
Right.
And they just didn't want to not, be up to par with the rules and all that. So they said, hey, do you think you could come just for these last 3 days? And I came, the youngest kid in there is a 7th grader, but the oldest kid is a senior. That's anywhere from like 12 to 13 years old to 17 or 18.
Right.
So at Junior Falls Creek, there was some pretty heavy stuff. Like, it wasn't too bad. It was like a little surprising. But then I got in there at Senior Falls Creek and they're talking about worldly things like suicide and like transgenderism and things. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it hit me because I had just been at Junior Falls Creek a couple of weeks ahead, where they're doing deep stuff like you can go to hell if you're not saved and things, and you might be bullied for who you are, but God made you a boy and a girl for a reason, and they try to, they made it kid appropriate, but I was surprised they were even talking about it there.
Sure.
And then we get to Senior Falls Creek, and they're talking about like suicide or I'm sorry, YouTube, unaliving. And drugs and alcohol and crap. And I was like, whoa.
Right.
But that's what it was. It's like, you can't expect these kids. Like my daughter, that was the first year she could go to Senior Falls Creek was last year. So imagine if it would have been imagine if you will, if she had spent the whole week at Junior Falls Creek and they had only sang songs like, Father Abraham, have any sons?
Right.
Or, if the devil doesn't like it, he can sit on a tack. Because those are the kind of songs they sing when we were younger. And then you go to, like, that's the vibe. And they do, I'm not dogging this. I think it's great that they have illustrations. I'm a very visual person. Make all the balloon animals you want, set things on fire. I don't care.
Right.
I think it's great. But imagine, if you will, if there was no deepness even in like the nighttime services.
Yeah.
And then she goes to Senior Falls Creek and she hears the preacher talking about those things.
Right.
And it shook me. It shook me deep because I realized I really hit me. I was like, holy crap, these kids need to know.
Yeah.
Because, yes, you want them to be innocent, but There's too much out there, man.
You want them to be
There's
innocent,
too
but
much
then,
out there.
Like, there was jacked up stuff that went on when we were their age, and there was dumb stuff that went on when we were their age.
Yeah.
But I really honestly think the prevalence of the internet and the prevalence
Changed
of social media changes how quickly they learn stuff.
Oh, yeah.
How quickly they know about stuff.
Yeah.
And, there's, and a lot of times there will be people, like there'll be kids that'll come up to us or whatever, that will say, like, hey, I've been struggling with this, or I've been dealing with this. And you think, you are
not old enough for that.
Not old enough. Why are you going through that right now?
Yeah.
And so it's the fact that, like, on one sense, I can see, like, it's almost, maybe not sad is not the right word, that they have to even bring that crap up at Junior Falls Creek. Because you would think, oh, they're just still so young. They shouldn't have to deal with that until they're older.
This should be just fun.
But now,
a chance to get away from home.
Right. But now the fact that these kids are dealing with this kind of stuff that early in their lives.
It is crazy.
They need somebody to talk about it. Because if it's kind of the whole thing of, like, people don't like it when you bring up certain topics at church, or whatever. But it's like, I would rather them hear about it
in a safe environment
perspective, rather than hear about it on some YouTube video that they see or in the locker room or something like that.
Yeah, and this is something too. Is I guess because I did grow up with the internet growing, so the internet was there, but it was just growing.
Right.
That and you kind of hit. I was he. We just is a little baby internet.
Baby with the
and get off the phone.
Sorry, kids, you have no idea what that means.
But you see, kids, wah, wah, wah. That was so funny. But I think part of that was I grew up and there was, like, things people would say, and I could tell by the way they said it or by the way they act around a certain joke or person that it was bad.
Yeah.
But that was just kind of like my inner discernment that people kind of always joked around. I'm an old soul, and I just kind of have, like, I'm not, like, wise beyond my years necessarily, but I've always been able to be like, I don't know about that. And but I think that's what it was. It was just, I was just like, no, this feels off.
Yeah.
Like that empathetic kind of, I feel like I'm a very feely person that way. It was like that. But then I get older and I start realizing what those jokes meant and, like, what it was. I would be like, holy, why were we talking about that then?
Right.
And now at my son, he says something every once in a while, and I'm like, I don't think that means what you think it means.
Right.
Because we work very diligently to keep internet only, like, we only have it on our phones. Mm-hmm. And we don't have, like, a computer you can just go sit at. And we do have, but all games have ads and stuff, so you have to be careful.
Right.
But that's the most he ever spends on his phone, and there's still things he says. I'm like, say that again.
Yeah.
Or my daughter will be like, oh, my daughter was, like, in this play, and they made a Netflix and chill joke. Mm-hmm. And it took all I had in me not to be like, no.
Yeah.
We are not saying that. But it was for junior high kids, and we went to go watch it, and there was these two boys behind me. I know. I subbed for their class, so I know what grade they are in. I know who their people are.
Yeah.
And they said that Netflix and chill, and I heard something, and I turned around, and they looked me dead in the face, and they were snickering and went, like, oh.
Right.
Like they knew what it meant.
Right.
And I was like, see now? Because when we were younger, if we were going to say Netflix and chill, we literally meant sit on a couch eating popcorn, watching Netflix.
DVD of Netflix.
Right? Like, our DVD came in. Let's go watch it. Now, it's like, no, with hookup culture and crap.
Right.
And that's what it's like. And this is why I will die on a hill. Like, maybe Falls Creek's not your church camp, but I'm like, send the kids to church camp. So there's been inappropriate things that's happened to children, hence the uptick in background checks.
Right.
Which is fair. All of that stuff is sketchy. All of that stuff is fair to be upset about.
Right.
But that could happen at anywhere, anytime, any place.
Listen, watch the news for a week and a half and count how many times you hear, local public school teacher does blah, 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 blah. Or,
inappropriate behaviors,
right,
inappropriate
or,
text messages.
Such and such at the local grocery store did what it happens
everywhere. So I'm going to take my chances and I'm going to send them to learn about Jesus.
Right. Right.
But we got, so speaking of Jesus, I had my daughter help me pull up some Bible verses that I thought was really good for, it kind of went with why we send our kids to camp. So in Ephesians 4:12, which I don't remember what 11 says, but honestly, you could probably use like 11, 12, and 13 for this. But just 12 by itself says to equip the saints for the work of ministry and for building up the body of Christ. And in 2 Timothy 3:16, all scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness. And and then I had her look up this one just for funsies, because I was like, if this isn't Junior Falls Creek, and sometimes Senior Falls Creek too, but Psalms 98:4, make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth, break forth into joyous song and sing praises.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, when you get thousands of kids in one place, it don't quite matter if they all could sing great.
Right.
It starts sounding a bit yelling.
Oh, yeah. There was one time, I remember vividly, we were at Senior Falls Creek, and this storm came through and knocked out the power.
That was beautiful.
And they had got, like, the emergency lights to come back on, but none of the sound was back on, because I think basically only the lights and I think maybe the air conditioner or something was on a generator maybe.
Yeah, because it was complete dark.
Right.
And then you heard this click and these lights started twinkling on.
A couple little lights twinkle on. And they're trying the guitars, whatever, and it's not coming through the sound. And you can tell that the people on stage are like, they're talking with the sound booth, trying to figure stuff out or whatever. Yeah. And finally, the guy just like puts his guitar down, puts the microphone to the side. He comes to the very front of the stage, and like we all just start singing this thing. And there's no instruments,
nothing.
There's no smoke, there's no projectors, there's nothing, and it's just 6,000 people. I don't even remember what song it was, but singing some song.
Yeah,
and it was just like, this is why we're here.
Yeah.
This is what heaven will be like.
Yeah. And that's, we say that so much. We say that so much, like the year, like I was saying, I had to go to Senior Falls Creek just for like a day the last week. That was the youth guy, Zeke, he was saying that. He was like, man, I love service. That's got to be what heaven's going to be like.
Yeah.
And our preacher, Reno, has said that. I've heard Dad say that before. And it is. There's just something about everybody in the right mind, the same mindset, singing the same thing. You're like, this is what that means.
Which that leads me to, so I got I had one verse written down. It's Acts 2, 46 and 47. And this is after Jesus has left. Mm-hmm. And it says, every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily of those who were being saved. And, like, this was more than just, like, a Sunday thing
this was,
them.
like, all day.
This was their lifestyle.
Yeah.
And when you get together for a week with, with like-minded people, you're, quote-unquote, forced to do a quiet time every day.
Yeah.
Every, like...
You have 2 church services a day.
You got 2 church services a day. You got breakouts throughout the day.
Yeah.
Anytime you go do any sort of, like... volleyball, basketball, any sort of competitive thing like that.
There's still music playing. You pray for it.
There's music playing in the background.
Yep.
And so I just think that's like, it's why we do the camps that we do. Mm-hmm. It's why we, whatever, good, bad, change that's happened in the past 100 years. Obviously, if something's been around for 100 years, it's probably going to change a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the car.
Exactly. But yeah, I just think that's really important, and we'll probably do maybe another episode about some more things. But like, just the fact that like, it is stressful, it is hectic,
it's a lot,
it is hot,
it's a lot,
so hot,
yeah,
maybe the most hot. But like, it's all done in the correct way. It can be an amazing thing.
Yeah, and that's one thing why whenever they were like. Last year, I just started, I don't know if we had even joined. I think we had literally just joined the church. And they were like, could you go? I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I was like, because this is what this is for.
Right.
I would want someone to take my kids to this. And and we talk about this all the time, is Falls Creek is you have a little more wiggle room. You can send people you're not quite sure are saved or not, because you know they're going to hear the gospel like every day. And excuse me. And they but then like with Super Summer, you're supposed to send your leaders.
Right.
And we've gone there, and there's been people I've met, and they like so the last time I went in 2021, there was this boy that was in my family group, and he had gotten his like ACL torn or something. He did not want to be there. Like, we were at our very first family group, and we're going around and introducing and what brings us here and all this. And he's supposed to be like, I think he was like a junior in high school, maybe a sophomore. And we get to him, and he's just like, look, I'm going to be honest. My mom basically told me we're going and threw me in the car. He was like, I'm mad because I can't run with this thing, and I do like track and stuff, and I can't do my life right now, and I'm not happy. I'm not happy to be here, but I'm here, and I guess I'll try to learn something. That was like the first day. By like about halfway through, every once in a while, I would kind of find myself sitting by him, like in service. And about halfway through the week, one of the days in service, he was sitting beside me, and he was hands up on his face, like, you know, head in the knees, crying. Like one of the worship songs was on, and he's just crying. Yeah. And I just sat there and kind of like patted his back, and then like I was like kind of praying for him inside myself. Right. And by the end of the week, he was just like, I'm gonna miss you guys so much, and y'all have helped me through so much. And he was just such a changed person because he finally allowed that alignment to happen. Right. And that happens all the time. You have these people who think, I guess I'll come to this, or my mom made me come. And they always change because when you go to service twice a day, you have all these breakouts, and Super Summer, they have classes. So we learn, like, it's kind of like the Falls Creek in-cabin devotionals, but you're separated by like ages, by your your grades from school. And so you're not only like-minded people, but you're like-minded peers. Yeah. And I think that's why Falls Creek and Super Summer work so well, is like, at Falls Creek, you're all together. So the 7th grader sees the 10th grader following Jesus, and you're like, I want to be like, it's right. You know, at Super Summer, you see your friend from school that you kind of knew they went to church, maybe you didn't, and they're worshiping hard. Yeah. And I really appreciate that. And that's why I will die on that hill. I was like, we will send people, because that's what it's for. It's for equipping the next generation. If we can't get them there and show them praising the Lord together is worth it, how are they going to teach? I saw this meme, and it was like the grandfather said, church is a necessity. And then it was like the dad was like, church is optional. And then it was like, the kid was like, it was like church is occasional, and then it was like grandkid, what's church? Right. And that's really what it is. Yeah. If we want if we want the world to change, we need places like this that show the next generation what heaven could be like, what it would be like to live in a place of like-minded people. Right. And I can tell you, even though I was not saved till I was 17 years old, I was still touched going there. Yeah. And I still learned a lot. As an adult, I went down front with like crazy hair and makeup on. And one of the youth boys went down there with me because my husband had to go back up to the cabin with our kid. And so he went down there with me because I was afraid to walk down there by myself looking like trash. And after he knew I was fine, I told him, I was like, yeah, go hang out. I came back, and they, it was like, we just care for each other. Yeah. And I'll go, and like when I was praying for the guy, I was like, sorry about all this. And it was obviously looked terrible because I was even crying. And he kind of laughed. They're like, no. I was like, what other place could you look completely wrecked? Right. And they're still like laying hands on, like, to pray for you, and to like, they're checking in on you and all this. And I know like some of y'all went down and was saved when y'all were younger. And it's crazy that they check all these boxes, and then they come and tell the cabin, these are the decisions that were made. Please check in on this. Right. And that's just, I will die on that hill. It's cool. Falls Creek is worth it. Well, whoa, that was the door that I slammed into with my chair. So next time, we'll be talking about VBS. VBS music is the best. Say yeah to the VBS. Y'all will love it.
You're gonna love it. So stay tuned for that episode. This is the longest episode we've ever done.
I know we got to talking a bit.
We talked a long time. So if you're still with us,
thank you.
Thank you. You win the
Thanks
prize.
for being here. Your prize is us saying thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, till next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.